I see a strong correlation with many of our guests who are successful entrepreneurs who had a parent, a father or mother who was themselves a small business owner who was encouraging the entrepreneurial, practice or the discipline. Was that part of your early sort of influence?
Yeah, for sure. My parents also noticed in me some entrepreneurial traits. I was very ADD as a small child. I was definitely bipolar, and I had the traits that many successful entrepreneurs have that are talked about as being diseases. They just saw them as being definitely an entrepreneurial makeup. So what they decided to do is give us the entrepreneurial skills, speaking from a stage, leading others, overcoming adversity, being able to sell, being able to problem solve, spot opportunities. So there was all these little lessons that I was given over the years, and I could speak to tons of them. I'd probably done 10 or 12 different entrepreneurial journeys by the time I was 15, but my parents let me try and fail and learn from those. And they would almost coach me after the fact. They wouldn't stand out at the curb letting me run my lemonade stand. They would talk to me at dinner as to how it went. So they let me go through the rough parts of the day and then learn from it. They let me go door to door for weeks, raising money or selling license plate protectors. They let me go and hire neighborhood kids to deliver newspapers for me when I was taking on more newspaper routes, and I hired kids to do that for me. They let me learn those lessons, and then they spoke to me afterwards. So I think that kind of was the grooming that I grew up with. And then they also showed me that being an entrepreneur was not about making money. It was about having control of your time and being able to do what you wanted when you wanted, and the money would follow. So I was very focused on the entrepreneurial journey as a great lifestyle thing, even as a kid.
For many of us who are blessed to have parents like that who recognize that things like ADHD, ADD, bipolar, where they're widely seen as, you quite rightly put, a disease, where to many of us entrepreneurs, in fact, I've been very public about having some of those same challenges. Those are actually gifts. And if you can have parents early on who recognize that and nurture that, it really sets you up for success. Sounds like you had that in your family.
Yeah, I remember in grade 6, I was called to the principal's office, and my dad came with me, and I was sitting outside. My dad was inside the office with the door closed, and I heard my dad yell at the principal saying, "There's nothing wrong with my kid. The problem is the school. The problem are the doctors." And then he stood up, opened the door, grabbed me by the hand, and he said, "Let's go." And I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "There's nothing wrong with you. The problem is they don't understand you. You're just like me. You're an entrepreneur." And I was being told to sit still and pay attention and be like everybody else and try harder and memorize things. And I was like, none of this makes sense to me. They're talking too quickly. I learned by watching, I learned from doing, and they're just talking at the front of the class. Plus, I've got this little business and I'm trying to sell stuff to everybody, and they're telling me not to do that. And I also grew up in an era when entrepreneurship was not cool. So entrepreneurship started to become trendy around 1995 with the growth of the first dot-com era. Prior to that, entrepreneurs in the school system were these greedy little capitalist kids who were teased and made fun of and shut down. So I kind of was in this stage in the early 70s and even into the 80s where I was that strange kid who was obsessed with running these little businesses. I was trading stocks at 16 out of the newspaper, but it wasn't a cool thing. It was this kid who just couldn't pay attention and couldn't focus. That's what I was always told. So my parents just showed me how to leverage those as a skill, right? How to leverage the ADD by seeing everything that was happening in the business opportunities.